I'm here. How's the mic? Hopefully everything's okay. This is just an open panel for whoever needs it. Well, not whoever needs it, for most people who need it. And I said I'd probably do one tonight, so here I am. I noticed Machine is streaming too. But I decided to do my own. I don't really have a topic. Did I put the link? Let me get the banner on. What do you think of the Biden speech? I heard from the little bit that I got from the headlines, it looks like he did better than I can't talk. Better than I don't know why. Better than the debate. Like a little redemption arc, maybe. I don't know. It's not going to interest me until they're locked in place, they're official, they got the VPs, and it's almost time to send my ballot in. That's how I tend to do in elections. I know, like, the lead up is just so much theater. I kind of keep an eye on where they stand on the issues and then vote accordingly. So that's me. I had a tweet that I wanted to share earlier today, but I can't find it. I guess I forgot to bookmark it. So there's that. This is, when I open panels like that, this is just my way of showing up for people that I want to help. So I'm going to show up periodically and open a panel, keep it going for half an hour or so. If people come up, great, we do a panel. If not, at least I kept that little spot open, just in case. Mostly showing up for men. I think they need a lot of support right now, and kind of validation, the usual, the validation, affirmation, affiliation, and then you have the larger construct of affinity. But also, like the neurodivergent, the misfits, the weirdos, the the tisms, the spurgs. You all know who you are. So I want to show up for that too. I don't think we have a lot of spaces for ourselves that really, where we can understand how to give each other the norms that we need. There's actually a theory. I forgot what it was called. They did some papers on it, some actual scientific-y papers. Neurodivergent reciprocity or something like that. And the theory is, how neurotypicals kind of, because they're working off of a similar theory of mind, they can all make similar assumptions about how the other person's mind operates, to where they're interacting, it doesn't throw things off too much. The assumptions more or less work because they share a common set of norms and way of looking and thinking about things. Well, there's a theory that when neuroatypical people get together, that they also have this similar way of syncing up and intuitively understanding each other on like a nonverbal level that helps facilitate communication between neurodivergent people. And it's things like, what some of the features they notice is neurotypicals seem to be heavy on coordination, like syncing up their communication with the rest of the communication in the group, and autistic or neurodivergent people, that seems to be less of a priority. We seem to just be able to spit out the content and the other person knows how to take it in. And it doesn't necessarily have to be carefully fit into a conversation like a puzzle piece. That's one feature. And in fact, both of these features I'm going to touch on are also features of Cajun culture, now that I think of it. That's why I never know where the line between the tism begins and the Cajunness ends. But the other one is and I noticed this from doing autism groups. Lack of hierarchy. There's not like status. We're mostly sigmas. We're not very status conscious, so there's not this like extra layer of how is what I'm about to say going to position me in the status hierarchy that I know how to read. We don't. I don't see status hierarchies to begin with. Like competence hierarchies, I can recognize sometimes, um, but like social status hierarchy stuff, I don't even recognize in the first place. And so that becomes less important too. It seems to be that we can just focus on content and we know how to pass content off and receive it without too much protocol or complication involved. And Cajuns have what's called, it's one of those cultures that has the cooperative overlapping. In Cajun culture, if you go down to South Louisiana and like you go to a crawfish boil, you're going to hear 7 or 8 conversations going on simultaneously, and you move in and out of the one. It's like watching 8 streams at the same time, and you just move in and out of the conversations that you want. People talk over each other, they cut each other off, they interrupt, and the conversation somehow people still understand the underlying continuity of it all. And then we don't have a sense of hierarchy either. We're very anti-authoritarian. It even shows up in our language. I hope this is Denizen. Welcome. I forgot to check you at the gate. Ooh, you know what? Let me take you off. Just well, you're still there, but just maybe it's your mic, or maybe you're not Denizen.
Greetings.
Okay, you're Denizen. What's up?
Yo, what's good? I just woke up a little while ago. Took a
Oh,
shower.
I'm glad to hear that you slept. I didn't think you ever sleep.
Yeah, I slept a few hours. I do cat naps mostly.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I do too, the disco naps. So what's been going on in your world?
Not much. Not an uneventful day.
It's a busy one for me, and I find and this is my third stream today. I find when my day is busy, I actually do more streaming because once I'm busy, I get in work mode, and then I look for other things to do, like streaming. And when the days where I'm not busy or don't have a lot to do, I stream less because it feels like a lazy day, and I talk myself out of streaming because there's nothing else going on.
Hmm.
So today was a very busy day, and I got 3 streams in. And there's Denizen's channel. Give him a like, a subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said, Denizen streams other people's channels, so if you subscribe to him, you'll get a good cross section of the panelverse at any given time.
I'm just putting the link out there.
Oh yeah,
There's a couple of people in my chat. I know there's a couple of people watching my restream of TML too.
Oh, the one that he's doing now.
Yeah.
I peeked in on it a few times, but the conversations were not anything I felt like I could jump in on. Now they're talking about Hermes Trismegistus from Hermeticism. Yeah, bring the party over here if you have them, if y'all are out there. Productive and motivated. Yeah, I get. I don't know how. I don't know. I haven't been motivated in a long time. I went to the fireworks for 4th of July, and I think there were some people that were trying to help me get laid, kind of halfway, sort of. And I forgot all about it. Like the whole time I was out there, it never once crossed my mind. I was so into showing off the fireworks and everything else going on. So I don't think my motivation is there anymore. But the productivity certainly is. In fact, I feel this is my problem usually. I'm ready to work at a level that most people around me are not. So I have to wait for them to either get there or find the people that are at where I'm at. And they're almost not out.
What's your reaction to this? We're in a time right now where neurodivergence is so common that it can barely be seen as a divergence anymore because it's an elimination of a standard or a mean. And in the future, we're just gonna figure out that everybody's on a spectrum, and the
I
people
would
who
love
are the
that.
least healthy are the ones who are the like kind of stuck in a category of thinking.
I would love that. Just like with gay, like I can check gay off now, that identity. But I can check it off. It's done. I don't need to do anything with it anymore. It can just fade into the background. I would love neurodivergence to also reach the state where we can, it's so normalized that people don't even worry about it anymore. It's just a variation like freckles or being
Yeah,
left-handed. The thing with neurotypicality though is that they seem to work off of a similar set of not only norms, but cognitive processes that allow them to sync up or cooperate in a certain way. And so I think you're always going to have something like this middle of the curve. Um,
heavily socialized people.
yeah, I don't want to call it a mediocrity, but even when I pull up that chart a lot, they show that like 60% of society that gets socialized into some kind of initial story and it works for them and they stay socialized and they're able to function and carry on civilization. And so I think you're always going to have a form of that. It's just, can the outliers and the normies coexist and form a society together? Just like can gay and straight people exist? I think we can. I think we've shown that. And so I think, of course,
Yes,
with
I agree.
neurodivergence, you have a range of functionality that comes with it. So you're always going to have areas of functionality that are probably going to need propping up by the rest of society for that to work. So it may take a little bit of work on neurotypical's part, but believe me when I say it takes work on our part too. People like Hank, people like me, people like Tommy, Provo, Ken, we struggle. Believe me, we struggle. So I think if it's going to work, just like with straight and gay or black and white or whatever, it can work. It's just going to take effort on both sides. But I see it happen all the time because most of my groups are mixed. They're a combination of neurotypical, neurodivergent, and so I prefer that.
Yeah,
Equilibrium. It seems like I heard of it. Let me look it up. But as far as what I do now, I just try to do what I can from the margins and the sidelines because the middle is it. That's where I think the woke has a point. There are certain cultures that it's less about your competency or your merit and how well you can conform to certain norms. And when I'm around those, like like I was in a men's group one time and the organizer pulled me aside one day and he said, "Look," he said, "you're showing up at like a 10 and the men here are at like a 3. So every time you show up, you're ready to do." And I said, "That's it's a 10 to you, but that's about a 3 for me. Like that's me barely getting started. So if it's already a 10 to your group and you think you're at about a 3, like I don't know how to mesh those two people. It's like the kids that show up several grades ahead of them just from their development. It's really hard to teach both of them in the same classroom because the gap is so divergent. And so when in those situations, I just do what I can from the sidelines until I can find enough people like me to create some kind of new group of our own. Oh, I'm looking it up now. Let's see. Um, you mean for a cure? There's a lot. What's happening now is there's a new wave of researchers that are actually autistic themselves and working from within the experience of neurodivergence. And there's a new paradigm they're trying to shift to that they call the neurodivergent paradigm, I think. And so they're moving away from seeing it as strictly medicalized and more in a kind of a hybrid of medicalization and neurodivergent lens. And so I think as that happens, they're going to find that balance eventually between how much to treat it medically. Because that happens with mental health too. Like, not all mental health conditions need to be medicalized or pathologized. And I think even the ones that do, you medicalize just the parts of it, just the symptoms or the traits that would respond to that or require that particular intervention. So I think it involves getting really granular about how we look at this stuff. We got Oink Oink. Oh, I keep forgetting to look up that movie.
Salute C4. Good to see you.
Is it Kurt Wimmer? Yeah, it looks like it. Enforcement officer in the future, in which this sounds good, in which feelings and artistic expression are outlawed, and a society where its citizens are forced to take psychoactive drugs to suppress emotion. Kind of the opposite of Brave New World. After accidentally missing a dose. Oh wow, yeah, this sounds. In fact, I might watch it. If not tonight, then tomorrow. There was a movie called, was it Pleasant? Something where it was kind of black and white, and they discourage having emotion. And like every time one of the little kids had emotion, the film would kind of start to get colorized a little bit to emphasize the emotionality. And that one was kind of the same plot line of stigmatizing and pathologizing emotion. Pleasantville, yeah. I saw that one. So if it's similar to that, I'd definitely be interested in it. It sounds like it's a more dystopian version of that.
Yeah, it was kind of a bite on the whole, like, Matrix aesthetic.
What year did it come? Did you see it?
I think so. I don't know if I watched the whole thing through.
Oh, 02. Yeah, that was not long after The Matrix. I've never heard of it. That is just at the. I think
I can't stand Christian Bale. That's my problem.
he's okay. He's good in some stuff. He's one of those actors I can look past him, depending on the role. This was at the tail, and to me, postmodern filmmaking or Gen X filmmaking of my generation peaked in 1999. That's when you have about 20 films that year that just represent that genre. And then the few years after that, it starts to taper off. And this is about the tail end of that Pomo filmmaking before it starts to turn kind of meta modern and also woke at some point. Oh, did Machine end? No. Or, yeah, everybody's at Machines. The Freak is out there. Lanza, Oracle.
I wanted to jump in and give my opinion on the question that was in the title. But I guess.
Are you able to do 2 streams? We could watch you on TMLs.
Yeah, he wouldn't let me up though. I don't know if he was away from his keyboard or something, or.
Oh, maybe was the panel. There's a spot open now. Maybe try again.
There were 6 people up there.
Oh, why do so many smart people believe in the occult? Yeah, and I want to know my version of it. Why do so many smart people believe in wokeness and unconscious bias and all that stuff too?
We were talking about Pleasantville and Equilibrium, Jess. I think it's because ritual works. That's what I think most people believe.
Like repetition and pattern.
Yeah. So you get focus, you open your mind and, whatever chakra you have to receiving something, and you put effort and spirit toward it.
I think your mic's cutting out. Maybe he was just away. It looks like he's letting people up. Yeah, I don't know if he dropped off or not.
How many people are on the panel?
There was 8 when I was looking.
Um, maybe I pissed him off.
Now there's 8. It's freak talking about time and oracle. Well, I feel I feel like I'm watching the Panoverse from the sidelines too. That's probably a good thing.
Peg. Good to see you, Peg.
Isn't it amazing what humans come up with when they get bored? Like boredom as a stimulus to creativity and innovation. That would be just like humans if all of that developed out of boredom.
I could
Hey,
agree
Peg.
with that if we're perpetually bored. Like if you describe like whenever we're not inventing something as a state of boredom, then I would agree.
But it's not always boredom. Sometimes it's just stagnation.
Yeah, it's just that the brain has to be occupied with something, and I think paganism, occultism, religion, we could just these all those words mean the same thing if you zoom out far enough.
Stories.
Yeah, and so I would say philosophy, government, stories, parenting, right? You zoom out far enough, it's all the same activity.
Yeah, I can see that. That's been said before too. That all of those things are related. Also, art. Um,
Daniel Berry Sports, what's up?
I don't either. I never get, but like you said, you have to have something to occupy your brain, or people do, and I always do. I can find something to occupy my. You can put me in a
Same,
white room, and I would find something to occupy my brain with.
same.
Very rarely do I have downtime in my head. Almost
I'll
not.
stare at the wall until images appear, and then I'll count the images and categorize them, and like anything I can do to occupy my
I
brain.
do. When I'm in a doctor's office, they'll have magazines. I will read prescription pamphlets or labels on a bottle or anything just to have my brain stimulated and occupied so I don't have to sit there in silence and just wait. Well, okay, partly yes, they did get creative, but secondly, even if they did get creative, they were competing with the creativity of the Greeks, which that's pretty hard to compete with. So maybe their creativity just got overshadowed and eclipsed.
Yeah, I would think the Romans might be a little more calculated than you give them credit for, and they wanted the Greek people to obey the new government, and that's why they adopted similar idols. These are all like systems of control and narratives, which is why paganism and Christianity are so similar, and why Constantine essentially incorporated his religion.
Yeah, it's how humans processed information and understood the world. That was the normal way that humans, the human brain, and humans with it interacted with each other operated. Logic and reason, all that came later. That was a historical development. So it that is the normal way for most of humanity to take in the world.
The stories do change us too, because, well, this is something on the edge of my thinking I've been thinking about very recently, but it appears as though force being the ultimate arbiter of all things, the only difference between systems of government are the narratives that are told in the founding documents and the culture. But there's still like a very different there's a measurable difference in the way that an American thinks and a Chinese person thinks.
Yeah, or even within America, like the way a Southerner thinks and the way somebody from like the West Coast thinks.
Yeah.
Um,
The stories being different.
yeah, those initial stories that we get socialized, whatever initial programming we get at birth. The someone explained it like hardware and software. The body is the hardware, and then the stories give you the software that run on the hardware. So you get this initial set of software when you're born, when you grow up, like your first few years of life. And then your story may stay that way, that it may work for you the rest of your life, or you may have to change it and revise it as you run into anomalies or discrepancies, or it just doesn't work at some point anymore. And then you have like the larger social stories, like they used to categorize race one way and then they started doing it another way. So people had to rethink that. And now we're doing it with gender, gay marriage, kind of you had to reconceptualize marriage a little bit, etc. So the stories that we share can change too, collectively, together, like simultaneously, more
Yeah,
or less.
reality could have been completely different. Recently, I've been wondering if pre-Puritan perhaps we didn't get along better. Like, if racism is kind of a new thing, if hating gays is a new thing, if it was just more socially acceptable. We feel like we're progressing toward less discrimination and hatred, but we could be right in the middle of a cycle of discrimination and hatred, and where like older, more arcane societies might have been less discriminatory on certain bases.
I think we are. I think certain groups are seeing more discrimination, and I think it's not the groups that they pretend that it is, or maybe all the groups are in their own way. But I think males are. We have the highest suicide rate. I think white people are, religious people are, etc. But I also think that's normal. I think anytime you put diverse groups of humans together, that's gonna. I don't know how you avoid that. It's like the clashing stories. But I also think all that's taught. I don't think babies are born naturally hating people because of the color of their skin or their gender or who they're dating or anything like that. I think that has to. You have to be given a story to fit that into, to give it some kind of meaning. And so the stories are changing. And then I also think about, like, because I've been watching those American Revolution shows, and we got this country by the skin of our teeth. Like, there's little incidents that if the timing would have been like a millisecond different, or the battle would have gone just slightly the other way, we would not have America right now. And so what all the different historical paths that had to line up perfectly to give us our country, and if any one of those ones didn't or got altered or changed, we would be living in a completely different reality right now. So the actions and decisions that this few group of people made and took determined the reality we're living in today. And it was not foregone. It very much could have gone other ways. And I think about that too. Like, we're the product of the choices that the previous generations made for us, in a way, or before us, and then we have to take that and do our thing with it. Very common. Right. Yeah, some of that is cultural, because the Greeks, or the pagans as they became known, um, were much less uptight about that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the same thing isn't true about race. I wonder how much we're being told, how truthful it is, and then also uh, maybe even some unintentional deception through narrative. Because we tell each other stories, and then that can really take hold of the psyche and make people believe and act a certain way.
Well, right now there's a story coming from the left about this hidden racism, this unconscious implicit bias that we all have in us that we don't realize we have, etc. And to me, that's a story. I don't think that's an accurate reflection of what's actually in people's minds and hearts and psyches, but they have a story written in their heads that it is, and it colors how they interact with their fellow Americans. And I don't think that's a good thing for society. I don't think that's going to unite us as a society. If you have part of society always suspicious that the other part hates them or is trying to keep them, hold them back somehow. And I think that's taught too, because people in my generation didn't think that way. That started cropping up in the newer generations. I thought we had gotten past all that.
That might have been just because we were inside of it, though, you know?
Well, when I was in school, I was one of the first waves of desegregation. We all Head Start, kindergarten. I even had preschool, like when I was 3 years old or something. And there were kids. It was very mixed. There were black kids, white kids. There were some Mexican kids. There were all different shades of skin color, etc. Even different language and speech patterns. Some had thicker accents than others. And we all, by the end of Head Start, the first year, we all got along. Like, I don't remember us ever fighting, ever thinking, oh, that kid is weird because they look different. None of that happened with us. Maybe it did, and I just didn't notice, or I was oblivious, but it really seemed like race was just not an issue for us, even as kids. The adults didn't make it an issue. The kids on their own, we all played together on the playground. We never thought to make it an issue. So to me, somebody would have had to come and tell us, like, you see that kid over there, the one that's darker than you, this about him. But on our own, we just all played together as kids. It wasn't even an issue. And this was like just a few years after desegregation. It was already normal.
And with things like black slave owners, you know, they cause a glitch in my programming.
Well, slavery was an economic system, and slaves had economic utility. So I could see the appeal of owning slaves if that's what generated your income in that system. That's so I don't know that. I guess in a way, if you're a black slave owner, you would have to wrestle with your conscience and kind of justify and rationalize why you're owning another black person if you're sensitive about that issue. But they might have just seen it as an economic opportunity and not cared. Like they were able to rationalize it enough to make money. Because even in Africa, wasn't it certain tribes selling other tribes? Like the black people were enslaving each other and selling.
Right, but we're told that it's based on race. And that there's a collective white guilt.
Yeah, but I don't know. First of all, I don't know how they know what people that are not even alive anymore felt or think. That's just speculation on their part. But I don't like and that was common in ancient Greece for a little while. They had this sense of that the children and the succeeding generations could be punished for the crime of a family member in the past. So like these noble houses, if the head of the household committed some great tragedy, their descendants could be punished for it by the gods in succeeding generations. And that's what and that was archaic. And as Greece civilized and the rest of the world civilized, they moved away from that belief. And that's what it seems like to me, like a really archaic belief that what your ancestor did somehow stain you, and you have to take the punishment for generations that you weren't even alive for. And that's what this white guilt, generational trauma, all that stuff seems like. It seems like making present generations pay for things they're not even responsible for, on the assumption that it's somehow still continuing in them. I remember Vosh's debate with P.F. Jung. Vosh kept saying over and over that the modern day conservatives are direct descendants of the KKK. And then P.F. Jung kind of maneuvered him a little bit to change it to where there's a direct ideological through line, meaning that what the KKK was teaching, there's a continuity with what modern conservatives are teaching their children. And I thought that was so ignorant, so ridiculous. Oh yeah, I remember Do the Right Thing, and School Days, and Girl Six too. That's still good. Played Spades. I remember Spades too. Is the Strange Panel TML? Tommy's in the back. Dan, what are you up for that tonight?
That's your decision because he doesn't bother me at all.
It's always a chaos. It's rolling a dice every time. He's definitely a wild card. Not in a bad way, but in the potential to change the conversation way. So if we like this line of conversation and we want to keep it, I'd be less inclined. But if we're up for changing the channel and see what happens, I'll bring him on.
I'm in a cooperative mood, so.
Okay, well, let's see if we can. All right, welcome, Mr. Alumatami.
Well, I'm going to help with the slavery education, but I did come up to ask why I'm muted in the chat.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot to take you off. Will you keep it toss friendly if I do this?
That's not my thing. You're listening to Host State and Paul Enslaved. I'm here to say slavery has always been about who is exploitable. And yes, white people did purchase all their black slaves from black tribes that sold black slavery because that's what they did with each other. Do you think black tribes thought it was racist when they were bartering slaves with each other of the same color?
I often wonder what concept of race
I'm
they
not
had.
talking to you. I never will be till you have the
Hey,
balls to come on
no,
my
you can't.
channel.
You
I
can't come up
fucking hate denizens. He's a
well,
piece of shit.
all right, you can't come up and attack my guest. That's nothing personal. I just don't let anybody do that. I've had to defend against TML and Steven, and there's been several people. So I'm just being consistent. But I do appreciate the commentary about slavery. Because I would kind of think the same thing. If black people are doing it to each other, then how much can race be an element in it?
I would imagine the same thing happening today, and then wonder what concept of race they had.
And I don't think the slave owners particularly cared what race the slaves were. I think they would have used Asian slaves or whatever. It's the black slaves were the one they had access to. I don't think they deliberately said, "Oh, let me go find some slave labor that's specifically black because I want that aesthetic, that black aesthetic." I think they just happened to be taken from Africa. But if they had come from some other source, the Southern planters would have been just as happy to use slaves of that race. Yeah, I don't know. He apparently does not like you, and he let it be known.
Some people are going to exploit existing paradigms without necessarily holding those paradigms.
Yeah, and I don't think any of it applies today, except maybe in isolated incidents here and there, which we already have distinct laws and policies to address. I don't think most Americans care about race. I think they probably care about immigration specifically more than actual race. And I don't think they care much anymore about sexuality or who people have in their bedroom or who they form relationships with. I think America just in general has kind of moved on or started to move on from that. And so to keep that kind of thinking going is just keeping us in that past
cycle
state. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's power in victimhood too. I can understand the attraction for people if they feel like that's the only path to power they will ever have.
Stop, Domenico.
Yeah, that sounds hard. Yeah, slavery was pretty normal, as I understand it, for most of the the fact that the U.S. was one of the first countries to react so strongly against slavery says something about the U.S. too and the values. Because the North, I was thinking about this today. I was watching the Civil War part, and the Southerners reminded me of the revolutionaries. They felt like the North were the tyrants imposing their way of life on them, and they didn't want to be ruled by somebody outside of their group and culture. But at the same time, they were fighting for the right to be tyrants and rule over the slaves, just like the revolutionaries were fighting to be their own version of a tyrant here in their own country. So each revolutionary is it's competing tyrannies. They look like revolutionaries, but it's just another incipient tyranny fighting to establish its version of tyranny against this other pre-existing tyranny. And so it's just, which tyranny do you prefer or do you want to live under? And I think now the two competing tyrannies are like the matriarchy and the patriarchy. Archetypally, at least. I don't know. I remember I thought racism was done. I didn't even think it was an issue. Every now and then you'd hear like there'd be like the Trayvon Martin shooting, or what is it, George Martinez, and every now and then there'd be a story that would stain the news a little bit. But for the most part, people had moved on from race. And then 2020 with George Floyd and Robert D'Angelo and Ibram Kendi, and all of a sudden everybody was convinced not only were they racist, but everyone around them was racist too. And then everybody went on like the racist witch hunt, and not only with each other, but in themselves too. And it just happened overnight, like in groups I was in, perfectly normal groups. People would show up and start talking about how racist they were. And so that inflamed it all over again, to the point where it started making its way into Biden's policy. Like that's how quickly it made its way into government policy. The haterarchy.
So if the people in power and control are exploiting narratives that they themselves don't believe in, but at the same time they perpetuate.
I think
some of them
do believe it. I think a lot of them do. That's why the story is so effective, because it's convincing. It's giving people the meaning they're looking for the facts that they're trying to make sense of.
What's up, Toe?
Yeah, I watched, they have a documentary they just put out, and it has the actual body cam footage. And when I watched that, because I didn't watch a lot of the video footage at the time, because I was seeing most of it live in Seattle, our version of it live. So I didn't care to see more of it on TV. But when I watched the actual body cam footage, it was nothing like I had pictured in my head, hearing everybody talk about it. Nothing like it at all.
What, of George Floyd?
Yeah, I don't know how he got the sympathy that he did.
The narrative.
It looked like an episode of Cops. It didn't look like this innocent victim that was being persecuted by racist, malicious cops.
Did you watch the trial?
Mm-mm.
So he took enough of whatever he took. I would be, based upon the testimony, I would say it was meth and fentanyl.
He was on something.
He took enough of it to pass out in his car with his drug dealer right there in the car with him. He was just passed out in his car. The cops, so first of all, he was stumbling in the store, and then he went and passed out in his car. He was so high on meth and fent. Then the cops show up and wake him up out of that. So you got to figure his heart is just going a mile a minute, and he's on meth and fent. Then he swallows the drugs that he just bought. He tries to eat them. Then he has his altercation with the police. Now, arguably, if the police weren't who they were, if they didn't think and react the way that they do, they would have seen a guy who was passed out, high in his car, had this white crust all over his face, and was freaking out and acting like a maniac, and they would have immediately called an ambulance right then and there. That might have saved George Floyd's life. I don't know what would happen if they weren't on his back, because they weren't on his neck. If they had him on his side instead of trying to hold him down, I don't think anybody can really say what would happen. But the guy was on enough meth and fentanyl to kill like a horse. And Derek Chauvin was not leaning on his neck for 9 minutes. That's just a thing that did not happen.
Not lost. Did you see the body cam footage? Why do you call it a death sentence? Like it was an execution. They're like, okay, this is our chance, boys. Let's get this guy. That's ridiculous. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's the psychology, like your version of what's in the heads of your fellow Americans is just outrageous to me. It's so cynical. It's so unrealistic. It doesn't reflect well on whatever's going on inside your own psyche. To me, if that's the best narrative you could come up with for what was going on in the mind of these cops. If that's a credible narrative to you, I don't know how people could adopt that. But then these are the same people that are thinking they're racist. So for some reason, this stuff is it's resonating somehow with enough people. Let me try to find the document.
He was never on his neck. So it wasn't 9 minutes, 8 minutes, 7 minutes, 2 minutes. It wasn't even 45 seconds.
I think it's called The Fall in Minneapolis.
He was on enough drugs to make him pass out in public behind the wheel of his car, and then he swallowed more drugs to hide from the police. So whatever you want to say, that's a lot of drugs. It was enough to knock him out in public in his car in the middle of the road on the side of a main road, parked on the sidewalk of a main drag. He was passed out in front of the wheel with his drug dealer next to him. So however much that was that he ingested, he immediately then tried to swallow what he had left on him after that. That's a lot of drugs.
Watch it all here and make your own decision.
Real quick, for the record, Derek Chauvin is a piece of shit, and he should have did hard time in jail for assault. And there should also be special laws, including ones with added circumstances when it results in a death. Whenever a cop violates his authority, assaults a civilian, and if it results in death, then he should have even gotten a harsher penalty. But it wasn't murder. You've been lied to. Homeboy died of a drug overdose, and arguably if they had helped him instead of sat on top of him like the psychopaths that they are, he'd still be alive. But that's a different story, isn't it? And I would argue it's a much more pertinent and important one.
We have Fab in the back. Can you cam up so I can make sure you're not a troll? I don't know if you're connected yet. All right. Do you know Fab, Denizen?
Yes. If he has his camera on, he's very tall, white beard.
Okay. He's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's fine. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, let's see how drunk he is.
Oh, welcome, Fab. How drunk are you? If he's there. Okay, well, we'll see if he shows up. I did see him on camera, though. So.
Is this going to be porn?
Well, he matched your description. Let me do this.
Oh, okay.
He did match your description. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's good.
All right, well, when you're ready to connect, Fab, let me know. Right, he was doing shit to draw attention. Like, the cops just weren't randomly looking for somebody to fuck with. He was drawing attention to himself for multiple people.
What's up, Squatch? I think I can faintly hear Fab in the background. Is his volume turned all the way down?
Let's see. Yeah, I faintly hear him too. Your volume is very low. Let me see if I can, oops.
Hold on.
I see your glasses. Let me see if I can, I have you turned all the way up.
Let me turn this thing off.
Yeah, I think that is part of it. That tendency to think in like extreme. That's that
I'm sorry.
the
I'm
Manichaeism that we inherited from the Persians.
All right, let me get. I got a lot. I got a fan here too. Let me go outside.
Okay, we can hear you now at least. That's good. Let me tell you something about Not Loss. He lives in Canada, and he gets most of his stories about what's going on in the U.S. through social media, I imagine. So it's a very outside looking in perspective.
Yeah, he doesn't have the. He might not have good information.
Yeah, I think
Um,
he's sincere about his conclusions, and I think he's in good faith. But he is working from a different set of inputs than some of us here in the U.S. might be
well,
working on.
he's very perceptive, so that gives me like a certain estimation of his intelligence, and I would say my question would be, uh, if you've had, did you watch the trial? You know, and then I would go from there because this this cop crap doesn't help in other Western
I don't know what that
nations.
means. What
Yeah,
does it have to do with other nations?
Zoltan, did you watch the Chauvin trial? That's all, you know, like, and did you watch all of it or did you see clips of it on the media?
Oh, he's watching this, but that's funny because everybody I know in Canada is trying to get out and come to the U.S.
Yeah, it isn't any better in Canada. I hope you know that. Like, you have an actual communist. It's your dictator right now. He literally like froze people's bank accounts for protesting.
Oh, Were you in Minneapolis? You want to come up and talk about it? I watched my city bird, or at least the Starbucks. What I don't know what cop crap is. Most of
Oh
it's
no, our police
exaggerated.
are worse than anywhere on earth except a few exceptions.
They're
They
militarized.
they're worse than most Western democracies.
Yeah, but they also fit a country like the U.S. If you look at our history too.
Yeah, I mean it's probably been a fascist dystopia for longer than we've can
Well, that's not
really admit.
exactly what I was saying, but what?
Yeah, I doubt that. I think I do know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. You watched it. I see.
Yes, I heard from truckers, so that's where I got my information was from the people who are out there protesting. Now
Yeah.
he's not
Oh,
a
go
he's
ahead.
not a socialist. What I mean by communist is he's a Chinese style dictator. So communism was sloppy language on my part. But yeah, what I mean by that is not that he's a socialist by any stretch of the imagination, just that he likes the Chinese method of cracking down on his own population.
Well, y'all get arrested for honking horns. Yeah, that is repressive to me. Y'all probably can't do fireworks either. They
I
would outlaw
also
those here if they could.
also listened to your dictator talk about his truckers on TV. That's the other half of that. I heard what he said. He's a disgusting pig.
Oh, during the trucker protest. So like they passed a specific law for the truckers. Okay, yeah, that's cool. We tried Fab. Sorry about that. Maybe another time it'll connect. I see a little cigarette cherry or whatever you have in the dark.
Yeah, on purpose. We all sent money. We supported the truckers. Here, he would have been impeached for what he did.
Did you watch the Biden speech?
No, I watched the part where he called homeboy Putin.
Oh yeah, and he called Kamala Trump, I think.
I heard about that, but I did not see it.
Yeah, I remember it always being high in Canada because in the 80s, when you'd buy something, like if you'd buy a book or something, they would have the American price and the Canadian price. It was always like 1.5 times more than the American. And I always felt sorry for Canadians because they had to pay more for their stuff than we did. Where did you get this from? Which propaganda network? Like they stopped the far right here in America, so they went to Canada instead and tried to start their movement there.
From the far left, clearly. That's where he gets that narrative. I have Canadian friends who were involved in the protest that I knew both before and after the protest. You know, could they have been co-opted by a political narrative? Yes, just like you are being right now with the shit that you're saying. But they didn't change. They were what you would call far right before the protest, and they remain to be far right now, according to what you would say.
Okay, yeah, he's in Russia. He's in the same conspiracy I was in. So I know, and you don't see it when you're in it. I know exactly. Oh, poor thing. Not Laws. I was actually where you are right now. And George Floyd was one of the things that helped me snap out of it, believe it or not. And so was watching the Evergreen protest. And then talking with people from the other side. Like I met like actual talking with people from the right, talking with Republicans, lots of them, many different varieties of, and seeing that they're not what the left is portraying them as. Just like in the 80s and 90s, people had all these weird thoughts about gay people, and so the strategy was to have as many gay people come out, and so people could get to know gay people as they were and dispel like some of the myths about them. And the same thing is being done with the right and Republicans on the left side. They don't actually, they have as distorted a view of Republicans as Republicans had of gay people at one time. And so the antidote to that is the same. You just need to get to know Republicans and people on the right and see that they're not the scary things that the left media is trying to make them out to be. Well, I was discerning it while it was happening too, and we came to different conclusions. So, what makes yours
He's
less
mad
valuable?
now. Take a breather there. Deep breaths.
Yeah, Philadelphia was. That was one of the few movies that I think I cried.
Yeah, so by the way, CIA soft coup in Canada? No. Feel free to come up on the panel. The link is pinned and make your case for that. I'd be more than willing to listen. But no, the American and Canadian governments are already well within collusion. The CIA doesn't need to do anything, and the CIA's agenda didn't have anything to do with pushing the narrative that your protests were about vaccines.
So he thinks the CIA was behind the trucker protest to destabilize Canada? Is that what you think? Not laws. That
No, he
sounds a
said
little
if.
crazy. That sounds
No,
a little
he
conspiracy.
said if he's making the case for controlling bank accounts with foreign money coming in. And what he's doing is he's saying that if you are a protester in Canada and you're caught protesting the way that the truckers did, and you received money from an American in order to do so, that the government should be able to seize those assets.
Or some other far right group. So you don't even know the group. What? This is in 2011. What did the CIA do in Canada?
And guess what? The answer is no, by the way.
Do you know Mossad?
No. The answer is yes, by the way. Like
Mossad, is there a chance we could see your face to make sure you're not one of the trolls?
I don't think the government should have the power to suspend. And they're not foreign bank accounts either. They're accounts that receive money from Americans.
All right, I'll give you a try, Mossad, and we'll do this. Welcome.
The United States wouldn't be able to seize a Chinese account. It would always be some American citizen's money that they would be freezing or seizing. So no, shouldn't be allowed to do that. And if in America, my point is that if the president did that here and your government found that he acted against your constitution, that was your parliament that found that. So here in the United States, that would be called an impeachment. If they found that our president violated the First Amendment, because it's our right to protest, by seizing people's assets because they were caught protesting, he'd be impeached for that, and likely the Senate would convict.
Hey, Mossad, what's up? Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, brother? Thanks for having me up.
Yeah, thanks for coming up.
Can you try turning your echo cancellation on and off again?
I know how to turn the mic on.
Here, I might be able to do it. Let me get out of here.
If it says the turn on automatically adjust too.
Yeah, sorry. Is it sound? It's a new phone too. I don't know.
Did that do it?
What's up, Mossad? What are you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're just like really distorted. How do we sound?
I got a little from you, but I can understand good enough.
Am I correctly to you, Jeff?
No, I think it's Mossad.
Yeah.
You're coming
can you try?
robot.
You're on a phone.
Yeah.
Can you try restarting your phone and coming back?
Yeah, sure. All right, thanks.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Okay. Yeah, well, Fab Day, does it work if you turn your camera off? Does that help it? Or is it just your connection in general? Oh, hey, Robin. Yeah, sticks. We had the tape, the cassette.
Toe, come up with your tinfoil hat. I want to see it. Toe says if you're using Wi-Fi, switch to data. Works better on StreamYards. How about that?
Then it eats up your data.
That's counterintuitive.
No, leave Canada where it is. Leave the U.S. where it is. Leave Mexico where it is.
We've already militarily annexed Canada, right? I mean, NORAD controls that whole area.
Yeah, I mean, Canada's not a threat, is it? I don't think we consider it a danger other than to themselves.
Hey, Cheryl. Oh, Cheryl. She was asking what about the title. I called it "Kisses for Baphomet."
Oh, again. Um, it depends on what you mean by co-opted, because I've been part of several grassroots orgs, and I consider this grassroots too. And so far, this hasn't been co-opted by anything. And it's I don't know if it's called co-opted, but at some point they reach a stage of growth where they start to become like they start to get grants and funding from sources that start to put requirements and conditions that kind of change the grassrootness. And then I guess they centralize, like some power centralizes. And some of them sometimes start to change into something that feels less grassrooty. And that's about the time I have to leave the organization. So I don't know if you consider that being co-opted, but I've noticed that happen with organizations. And there's a certain stage of growth that they reach where I have to get out and go find another organization because I can't centralize into that one unit that they do. I think some of it's a neurotypical thing too. All right, let's try Mossad again.
So if I'm responsible for guarding your airspace, how do I not control it?
From guarding my airspace?
I was responding to Daniel. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't see. Okay.
Mossad didn't have his wang out, did he?
Let's hope not. I didn't see a wang.
No,
and let's go to the chat. Anybody see a wang?
I'm in short.
Yeah, that's all I saw was shorts. So just keep the little puppy up. So yeah, I think your mic's working a little better.
I hope so, man. This is a new fucking phone.
Yeah. It's
let's see. Am I able to? Yeah, I definitely appreciate the subscribers because I'm trying to get to 500.
But here, I'll drop it for you too.
And you can put the panel link too if you haven't.
The panel link is pinned, and Jeff's link is in the title and the description. And I'm also going to post it right now. Again.
So, Robin, when you say that, so you're saying like a little grassroots, like us, we'll get together and form something, and then some other larger group or organization will come, and I've kind of seen that happen too, with like some funders will show up, or like one or two corporate types that are connected with larger groups will show up, and then the group will start to argue, or sometimes will start to organize around their vision. I've seen things like that happen. And again, that's the point where I have to disaffiliate because I need that grassroots thing that we started with. Oh, really? Because I've seen it happen like even organically, not even really big organizations, just any group slightly larger than a grassroots can come in, and they do two things. They come in and try to help it grow. So they like take it on as a project, or they absorb it into their mission and it becomes part of that organization. I guess, yeah, you have a point. It's hard to keep things at the grassroots level after a certain point. When I had my meetup group, we got to about 1,000, and that was fine. I mean, I was able to still keep that grassrootsy. So I know I could at least work with that number. So Mossad, what's up? You had some thoughts?
I don't know. You guys were covering a range of topics.
Oh yeah, you said you were the one that said you watched Minneapolis.
Oh yeah. I watched. I watched Minneapolis burn. It was hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of what happened there. And
what did you think at the time?
It was disgusting. It was ridiculous. They had to abandon a police station. I don't know if you remember that.
They did that in Seattle too. They took over the chest.
Oh yeah, I remember that too. The whole Antifa for Proud Boys and the battle for Portland. I won't. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. It was. I'd never seen anything like it in my life, and it was happening right outside of my window.
But at least the battle for Portland. I mean, we won the day, but right now.
Oh, you were involved in the Portland one?
No. If I was, I sure as shit wouldn't admit to it. You saw what happened on January 6th.
Oh yeah, because I remember on J6 that there were some other state capitals that other groups tried to do the same thing. So it was like coordinated or something. Because here in Washington, they had a group that stormed the Capitol in Olympia that they had to repel with security. So it wasn't even just in DC that this was happening.
Yeah, there was a bunch of live streamers on YouTube that were there showing all that stuff.
Yeah, it was George Floyd was like the first event. Because first it was we were all locked down, following the guidelines, everything. And then George Floyd happened. And that changed everything. And then January 6th happened, like at the end of that year, beginning of the next one. And that was the next big flashpoint. So between those two things, like so many narratives got created between those two events.
You don't see any coordination between those?
Like the same people that inflamed George Floyd are the same people that inflamed January 6th.
Yeah, and the same people who pushed lockdowns.
Who would they be?
The deep state, the unelected government, the administrative bureaucracy that creates all of our regulations and policies right in front of our faces out in the open.
But they don't create it with impunity or lack of accountability.
Oh, no?
Well, no. I mean, the leadership is still responsible for the policies. And in fact, I did a thing on the deep state the other day. There was a Twitter thread we looked at, and it showed the different components of, like, the deep state is actually part of a larger something called, I forgot what they call it, the administrative state or something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a single department. It's okay. We got Fab Daddy back. By the way, Mossad and Fab Daddy, do you have channels?
I do, but I don't create content, so
Okay.
don't subscribe.
All right, so I don't have to worry about putting you in the title.
Thank
Well, I
you.
mean, if everybody wants the subject, I don't really like.
Well, you know, if you put me in the title, you might get a few more views because I'm infamous already.
Oh, okay. So you're under Fab Daddy?
Yeah, I'm pretty infamous. Dennison knows me.
Let's see. Fab.
Can you hear me? Am I?
Yeah, you're coming through clear.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Yeah, it's good.
Fab Daddy 44. Okay, I think I got you.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of infamous on YouTube. I've been around like a few different communities. So I don't know. I want to talk and no one can hear me. So I came up on your channel. Let's go ahead.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Great.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you now.
I'm sorry if you hear some fans, but it's still like 100 degrees.
No, your audio quality is excellent for being over a phone.
Well, you know, I was on Google and I switched to Safari, so.
Yeah, that might actually work for Mossad too. You might want to change browsers.
Browsers are important.
Mossad, do you have a channel?
Yeah, but it's got a bunch of dog videos on it, but I don't like push it or really make new stuff. And like, I mean, people want to sub, cool. If not, you know.
I'll be right back.
All right.
Is that picture you got up right corner? I can't read it, so small. Is that the actor from The Last of Us?
Supposedly it's Vincent D'Onofrio. Is that him?
I love Vincent D'Onofrio. He's a good actor.
Is that the guy? Is that your picture? No.
Let me see the.
Can you hear me?
I think it's some other guy in The Last of Us.
You sparking a doobie, or is that something else?
I'm sparking
A shadow government.
pipe.
But I'm saying they can't be a shadow government if they're still accountable to the departments they work for, the heads, the executives, ultimately the chief executive, etc. They're not independent,
Are we
and
talking
especially
about
with
a
the
deep
Chevron
state?
ruling recently,
Are we talking about a deep state?
they're trying to talk about a deep state. I'm not buying it,
Um,
because originally Denizen proposed that like the same people that kind of accelerated the George Floyd thing are the same ones that influenced January 6th. Like they're trying to create unrest on both sides, and I just don't see enough evidence of those kind of behind the scenes fingerprints.
I think that would be the MSN.
Now my question would be to Dennison, if he's asking this question, is who is they, and is it like the super rich that we don't know about that's controlling everything? Who is he calling?
He said it was the deep state.
There is kind of a deep state. Like we have super rich that kind of controls a lot of things. You guys, I hope you know that, right?
At the most, they have influence. Like money has influence, especially after Citizens United. But
yes,
I need more than that to see control. Like yes, but money talks. But that doesn't mean that money controls or we're at the mercy of it. In fact, I remember times where the rich people have tried to push through their bills or stuff and they didn't pass. So they have influence, but they're not always guaranteed to get their way.
It's rare though. It's rare. That's rare. I think corporations win like over 90% of all lawsuits that go against corporations. Just saying.
And it's only a couple of global conglomerates that owns a majority of MSN to control the narrative.
Well, I just saw that Albertsons and Kroger's are merging, and that's the two main grocery store chains.
Well, Albertsons and Kroger's are owned by probably like 3 people.
Well, they're trying to merge and become one, and I think the Labor Department tried to stop it. I know Washington State filed a lawsuit to try to stop it too.
Don't quote me, but I believe they won that. They just have to get rid of a certain amount of stores.
Yeah, they have to, and I think they're getting rid of all their Safeways.
Safeways are gone.
Well, they're just gonna have to sell it to some other company. The stores will probably still stay in existence, or it'll just be owned by somebody else.
Just under a different name. Because I remember Albertsons, they're no longer around. I remember
they became
Walgreens.
Safeway or something.
Safeway is Kroger's. It's the same.
No,
company.
that's Safeway was Albertsons, and Kroger is on the West Coast. Is called QFC.
God, you know what? I can't follow the money. They go from Cayman Island to Luxembourg to wherever they can put their money in that they don't have to pay taxes. And that pisses me the fuck off.
Well, fortunately, you don't have to follow the money because there's so many people on the Panelverse that apparently are really good at following it and already know where all of it's going and coming from just sitting behind their computers all day.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm not going to believe any just Joe Smo that's looking things up.
Yeah,
more than I would. I'm just saying.
Witchy, can you flash real quick so I know it's you? Okay, cool. I got you. Daniel, I don't believe that. A geopolitical dark web. That's just a story right now. Like I don't believe that.
Quick questions for you directly, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
The first one will be short. The other one takes a little bit because there's some hypothetical in there. Okay, so the first one is, who does the CIA answer to?
Who do they what?
Answer to?
The government, whatever part of the government they're part of? Is
Really?
it
Because we've audited them about 5 times and they keep coming up 21 trillion short. So who are they accountable
you
to?
mean financially, like the budget
Well,
wise?
that's what matters. That's how they control foreign governments and whatnot. So
It's a
who are they
civilian
responsible to?
foreign intelligence service of the federal government, analyzing national security information. It's a member. They have what's called the United States Intelligence Community, and they're a group
And
of
who
separate.
does the CIA answer to? If we cannot, as the people, the ones who are supposedly in charge, if we cannot audit them and find
I
out
like
where the
this.
money goes,
I
who
love this
are
question.
they
It looks like
responsible
ultimately
to?
it's called the Director of National Intelligence.
NIH?
ODNI. Is it Mike McConnell?
Is it
That's from
NIH?
2007. Let's see.
That would be Mitch McConnell, but no.
Director of no, it is this lady. She is Avril Haines.
Right, and who elected her? So
She
who
might
do
be
they answer
appointed.
to?
Let's see.
No one.
Because well, when you elect Biden, you elect all of these positions that he gets to appoint.
Correct.
And Trump's going to get to do the same thing.
Correct. I agree. That is correct.
In fact, listen to this. It was upon the inauguration of Biden that the position was elevated to cabinet level. Before Biden, it was not a cabinet level position.
Which means they didn't even answer to the president because they weren't a cabinet level position. That's says something.
Well, I think everyone answers to the President of the United States. Is that not correct?
Well, everything under the executive branch, ultimately.
Well, everything, even the legislature.
No, Congress and the Supreme Court are independent. They're
I know, but no, they still literally will answer to the president. If the president asks them to have a conversation, they will sit down and talk with them. Correct.
But by answer to, we mean be responsible in reporting to. Like having someone who has authority over you, and the president.
Yeah, the president has no authority over Congress or Supreme Court.
How come they released all the JFK files yet? You know how long ago that was?
I'm not even getting to that.
Okay,
one.
so my second question, Jeff, also related, is imagine you were a shadow government, so to speak, and you wanted a global governance. Could you do that easier if you undermine patriotism across the globe, or if you fed into patriotism across the globe?
I think it would depend on what your goals were, what the game board looks like.
Global government, if you undermine patriotism in the most patriotic countries to the point where most people will tell you their government sucks no matter where they live.
Can I ask you one question before I answer that? What do you define patriotism?
Well, the question was for Jeff. I'm sure it's cool if you answer, but maybe he wants to answer it before I go into further detail, or does he want a definition of patriotism?
Without knowing too much about geopolitics, just what I know about humans and systems and everything, my initial instinct is that something as general as it's always best to do this and not this, I think it's going to end up being more complex and nuanced than that, where there'll be situations where they'll want to undermine patriotism. There'll be other situations where it might be more advantageous to increase it in certain areas. So I don't think it's a black and white answer, even if you're trying to form.
If you want people to give up their current government and fall headfirst into a new world governance where nobody has their own nationality anymore, wouldn't it be easier if in especially places like the US where patriotism was strong and nationalism, wouldn't it be easier to undermine that before you present this new world government?
Well, to me, you'd have to present it first, and then that's the best way to do it, is present an enticing alternative. You wouldn't have to undermine anything. People would naturally want to choose.
Yeah, but if the alternative isn't enticing, wouldn't you want to undermine what was there first in order to override it? Wouldn't it be easier to knock holes in the dam before you try to knock it down than to just try and bulldoze it in the first place?
Where do you think this is happening?
In our media, I'm watching us get turned against our police, i.e. George Floyd and other such things.
Oh yeah.
In the wars that are
Yeah, I
being
hate
created,
police.
and the fact that our people in countries around
Yeah.
the world are now
There's no
protesting
good
their
police.
governments based on what the media is feeding them.
There's no good police. So I'm agreeing with her. There's no good police.
Oh, I think that's way too
That's not what I said.
superficial
I said
and
our media
reductive.
is
The cops are
convincing
very
us that our
individual.
government is out to get us.
Correct. I agree.
Why
I
the
don't
fuck
think
would
that.
they be doing that?
I'm not
unless there's
paranoid
some
about our
ulterior
government.
Nah,
motive
media
to
is trying to
eliminate them?
convince us our government is still our best
Media
friend.
is all coordinating, so the left-wing media and the right-wing media, even though they're putting out completely opposite narratives, are all coordinating on this single meta-narrative somehow.
Yeah,
What?
most of mainstream media is coordinated. Absolutely, 100%.
I have no problem with that as speculation, but I'm going to need more than just that for me to bump it out of that category.
So
So you've
now
never
we're talking
seen
about
when
propaganda.
different news organizations from all around the country report exactly the same stories,
I don't
exactly
really pay
the same
attention.
words.
I don't really pay. Yeah, but
So we're
sometimes they
talking
buy
about
this. I had a
propaganda.
friend that used to work in news. She was a newscaster. Sometimes they buy these stories prepackaged. They're not generated locally by the stations. And so
Yeah,
you'll see the same story from different anchor people.
yeah, yeah. It's all coordinated.
Propaganda.
I don't infer coordination from that, from people just selling packaged.
Now,
like
my
stations buying
question to you
packaged
guys.
news stories.
I know once you turn it into a capitalistic transaction, it seems so voluntary and non.
I don't have a problem with capitalism. I don't have a problem with centralized the propagation of information like these news stations are doing. There's plenty of alternative sources. I don't conclude coordination and control from that like you do. There's a logical leap.
All the alternative sources though are bunk.
Social media, like every human on the planet now that has a social media account is an alternative source.
Would I call you propaganda? Yes, I would.
Media has never been more decentralized, probably in human history, than now.
And
so when you talk about the media, this is the time in history where that concept makes the least sense.
Yeah, but everybody that you say doesn't know what they're talking about is telling you the media is full of shit. So all that decentralized media that you're talking about, those are the people that you give no credence to and you think are full of shit.
But it's decentralized. That's the point. It's not a
but what difference does it make if it's decentralized if the fact that it's decentralized is the reason why you pay no attention to it?
I do pay attention to it. That's where I get most of my source. I use multiple sources, and that's what you can do when it's decentralized. You have more sources to draw from.
It seems to me that any sources that disagree with your preconceived notions are the ones that you dismiss.
Well, you'd be wrong. I take in my sources, I examine them, I put together a rough picture of the world, and I keep revising it as more inputs and sources
I would call
come
you
in.
propaganda.
So what is the
mass media?
What are the loudest voices and the most numerous voices telling you the same thing, or are they disconcerted?
No, pretty much every person I talk to, or every streamer I watch, or every article I read is telling me something different from that one person's perspective. I have to synthesize all that through this process of critical examination and thinking, and drawing my own conclusions, knowing that it's tentative. I'm not going to be the one person on the whole planet that suddenly puts together the exact picture of what is going on in the world.
Let's not talk about exact pictures. Let's talk about whether or not the government is honest. And
that's too general and universal. I need specific situation. In this particular situation, like a court case, was the government honest here? Because the government is made up of individuals, and some of those individuals could be honest in certain situations at certain times and not at others. So when you abstract it into the government as if it's this single united consciousness, you lose me. My mind just doesn't work that way.
If I give you the most recent proof of what he's talking about as far as court cases and whatnot, the issue is going to be your channel's going to get in trouble and you keep speaking about TOS.
It's beyond that.
All that would be is one data point anyway.
That would just be more proof.
Talking about it.
That'd just be more proof to him that the system works.
What would be?
An example of corruption. because it got found and it got prosecuted.
Well, the system
and if
works
it doesn't,
because
if it doesn't reach the state to where there's accountability, then you dismiss it as not being deserving of accountability, as not meeting the threshold.
Getting that? When have you seen me do that? Where are you getting that from?
Every conversation we've had about this subject.
I've dismissed corruption.
Damn.
What happened?
I don't know, but
Yeah,
damn. You called
Daniel,
them on
I've
shit,
spoken out
Dennison.
several times against Citizens United. I don't think it was a good decision. I've said that over and over. I remember when it started, and since the day it started, I thought it was a bad call.
So most recently, we had a huge uproar worldwide.
When?
I won't mention the word. Governments globally took action in unison that it turns out they all knew was unnecessary and
COVID.
detrimental to the
We
health
don't
of
know.
their
I don't believe
society.
they thought at the time
No,
it was
they're admitting it
unnecessary.
now. It's literally coming out.
Show me where
Who's
all the
talking
governments
COVID?
in the world
No,
came out at the
stop.
same time and said, we knew at the
gotta
time
go.
it was unnecessary. We did it anyway. I don't believe you. I don't believe all the governments are coming out at the same time saying we knew at the time and did it
It's
anyway.
time for a new topic. It's time for a new topic, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you want to start a stream of your own and you can pick your topics?
I probably should start a
doesn't want your
stream.
stream
I think
shut
you'd
down,
all
Jeff,
love
and he's
my
probably
stream.
right.
I mean, we talk about COVID on here all the time. I don't know what I don't freak out about it as much. I'm
His
having a
channel's not gonna get
perfectly
shut
rational
down.
conversation about a global pandemic that we all went through. If they're going to
That
shut me
happened.
down for that, then
It happened.
They're not going to shut him down for that. He's for the narrative. He's not going to get shut down.
Well, it happened.
I lived
we
through
all
it.
felt it.
I'm for the narrative that I myself lived through. I can speak quite credibly on that narrative.
I mean,
And I understand how
everyone has
viruses
their
work.
own story of that time period in their life. Is that not correct?
Oh yeah, I think in fact, if the election of Trump itself didn't start splitting off these narratives, COVID certainly did. Like I think that between Trump, COVID, George Floyd, J6, there were so many little bifurcation points where the narratives keep getting split to these 2 or 3 or 4 competing accounts of reality.
Nothing strikes you like amazingly coincidental about
No,
that.
I think that's how
My question
human
is,
sense making work. It perfectly matches what I understand about human psychology. It doesn't require me to posit an additional coordinating influence from some external agency for me to believe that that's how humans would behave just based on their own natural psychology.
So, Jeff, how about the fact that corporations boasted record marginal profit gains? That means an increase over previous profits during a national emergency. Biden does have, so did Trump when it started under him, the executive authority to punish those people by 200% of the profits they made by doing what's called
Somebody's got
gouging
wind in their mic.
during a national emergency.
they
Why
gouge
have
like a
none
champ.
of our politicians pushed for these sanctions to be put in place on these huge corporations that price
I don't
gouge
know.
during
Have
a
you asked
national
any of them?
emergency?
I have no idea.
I'll tell you the reason why. Because no one goes against corporation. No one goes against corporation, woman. No one does. You'll be damned if you go against corporation. They control everything in the capitalistic world. The corporation.
I go against corporations all the time. There's plenty of advocacy options and legal options to go against corporations. They're not omnipotent. They have checks and balances and restraints on them. They lose court cases.
Barely.
They resolve complaints. And in fact, in this day and age, it's never been easier to go on social media and make your complaint about a corporation public, and they respond right away. Oh, we're sorry. Let us help you. Let us take care of that right away.
Yeah, it's kind of like Bud Light. It's kind of like
there's a difference between feeling powerless and actually being powerless.
You literally cannot sue the vax companies over the vax. If you got adverse side effects, and there are a lot of them reported on bears, you literally cannot sue for them. The government wrote that in for them.
Okay. Well, there's all these other areas where you can't. So,
How
I
many
don't know enough
lobbyists
to speak
are
on that
there
one
in
area.
Washington,
Yeah, see,
D.C.?
it doesn't matter if a corporation is hoarding all of your country's natural resources or
Which corporation?
How
undermining
many
your.
lobbyists are there in
corporation's hoarding
Washington,
our
D.C.?
national
I thought
resources?
maybe after listening to you all speak, I was going to get to talk.
Go ahead. It helps me to take it in bite sizes. So when you throw out something really generic and abstract, like a corporation that's hoarding resources, my brain would like to
I
know
could
what
type
that
it in the
corporation is,
chat.
so I can follow the rest of the conversation.
I could
That's
type
why
it
I
in the
do it.
chat.
Okay. Well, if you know what, I'm just gonna end it. If we can't have a conversation, let's just end the stream, because people are trying to talk about vague shit that they're not able to talk about. So there's no point in it's just gonna confuse my brain. I'm not good with this type of conversation. I need concrete stuff,
We could change the topic if you like.
or we could do that.
I'm all for it.
Yeah,
So
you know what? I think we grow too much corn in the United States of America. How about that?
yeah, I agree.
I think we should grow more pot.
The soil and corn depletes it.
See, that changes the conversation.
Yeah,
Look, how is it the
I don't know enough
dispensaries?
about it, but you
Dispensaries in my neck of the woods are ridiculously expensive and taxed, but I can get far superior product through the black market for a tenth of the
Market.
price.
Yeah, black market's awesome. Screw the government. They always screw everything up anyways. They're just going to tax you, and you're not going to get the product that you deserve. We all know this, especially when it comes with drugs, because drugs, hey, God forbid, THC just stop becoming a class 1 drug, but still, whatever. We all know. It's easier to get it from your drug dealer that grows it in his yard. He doesn't put pesticides on his plant, and you're getting good stuff, right? So, yeah, black market's not bad.
And it's a
Sorry.
lot better. Marijuana is a lot better for you than these opioids and other stuff they're pushing on us.
Well, you know what? The opioid crisis came about because of OxyContin. I'll be honest. I knew too many heroin addicted people, whether or not they were getting it from OxyContin or not, but got addicted to that from the doctors. So fuck you, doctors here in the United States. You caused it. I'll call it as I see it.
Well, we talked about that one night on here, and I don't believe that anybody can cause addiction without that person also contributing to the addiction. And we talked about the personal agency and all the things people could do before they actually get addicted to kind of give themselves the best chance of not getting addicted. So I don't put it all on the doctors, because patients have a role in their own experience as well.
I kind of agree with you, but I also do believe doctors prescribed it way.
Oh yeah, that's probably true.
How do you feel about the hereditary aspects of it? Because the science says now, like, you're hereditary predisposed to this.
I mean, like, we all have a choice. Like, I could choose not to drink coffee every morning, but I do because I love fucking caffeine. I'm addicted to it. It's the same thing. It's the same fucking thing. But the doctors gave them permission to be addicted to a morphine. And when they didn't get that morphine anymore, they went to fentanyl. And a lot of them are dying. That's my problem.
Yeah, I can see that.
Or other drugs like how many different, like, what's that zombie drug? There's so many different. Trank, all kinds.
Is that the crocodile drug?
All kinds of different drugs. I mean, hell, my friend told me he did some like fake weed in Las Vegas, and he's a weed smoker. He's been a weed smoker every day for his entire life, and he stopped smoking because he had to be a dealer in Vegas, and he tried this bullshit fucking fake weed.
Oh, like the spice.
Yeah, he did spice, and that shit fucked his ass up. And he's like, "Oh fuck, that shit's fucking brutal." And I'm like, "What? I've never done it, so I
It
don't
is
know."
just like weed. Like I could not tell that it was not weed.
No, he said it zombified him. And I was like,
Maybe it was Oxycontin.
that's kind of nice because when I smoke weed and I smoke it every day, I do. I will not deny I'm a weed smoker. But when I smoke it, I really want to get stupid, dumb, fucking dumb. Like as dumb as you can fucking get me super high. We're all chasing that super high. And it's stupid. But I kind of do like smoking weed every day. I get high, but I don't get high anymore. I can cope. I'm copacetic with the weed.
But me
At
personally,
this,
it helps with my PTSD from Iraq and Afghanistan. That's just my opinion. My body,
Fully
my chemistry.
disagree that everybody is chasing that super high. I find it difficult anymore to find low THC marijuana because I'm not looking to get high. I'm looking to medicate. It's something that's prescribed to me through doctors. I've cured my cancer with cannabis. I'm
really?
not. I used Rick Simpson
The
oil.
RSO. That's what I was about to ask.
I used it. Pardon me, guys, because I know this is kind of girly, but I had cervical cancer. And I used a Mossad syringe, which is to put yeast infection medication on your cervix. And I used that syringe to put RSO directly on my cervix every day.
And it worked?
And it
Nice.
worked. I was told I cured my cancer psychosomatically by my doctors. They didn't want to admit it was the cannabis.
Well,
Remember,
and now that marijuana is not a class 1 scheduled drug, we can find this stuff out. And I hope marijuana is a cure for a lot of things for people. It's a great. It's actually way better than alcohol. It's better. It's better for you. Alcohol will poison you. Marijuana will help you. That's my personal belief.
Yeah, and now they're doing research on things like mushrooms, MDMA, ketamine.
Yeah,
For
clinical
yeah,
trials.
like for things like depression, PTSD.
Yeah, they're using that. The VA is doing clinical trials. Well, people that work with the VA.
Long-term neurological problems, i.e., neuropathy, etc. They're finding really good results with mushrooms.
Can I tell you all? I am legally insane in the state of California because I did too much LSD. And so if I ever get trouble with the law, it's because I'm having a flashback and I'm not in my right mind. I've did too much LSD and I'm having a flashback. There you go.
What's the official diagnosis?
I think it was 11 hits of LSD in the court system here in California that considered them insane. In the state.
That's it.
So
Well,
it's like
also,
you're
I could have ate
technically
Twinkies.
insane, but not
I
actually.
could have ate
Never had a
Twinkies.
flashback.
I could have ate Twinkies because there's the Twinkie defense. That's from the 1970s, 1978, I believe, was the Twinkie defense, where a guy got off because he ate Twinkies and he wasn't in his right mind, the sugar level in his body. That was a true case here in California. You can look it up. The law is stupid. Government is stupid. So recently I had a fire in my hometown where I live in California, and they mandatory evacuated me, and I disagreed with them, and I stayed. I stayed in my house. Now I didn't know I could get arrested if I was walking around, and
You wouldn't want to leave if there's a fire?
No, there was a fire. There was a mandatory evacuation at my house. They said, get the hell out. And I said, no, I'm watching the fucking fire. You're not telling me to leave. It's a lot like mandatory vaccinations. It's anything that's mandatory that the government says you have to do is bullshit.
Even if it's like to save you from burning in a fire.
Correct. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
What about the guy from Burning Man? What was he on? He ran into the fire a couple of years ago.
Well, I don't know about that psycho, but I'm not that guy. Anyways, my house was fine. And I never saw so many goddamn cops in my area. And they all did shit jobs. I mean, just cops are just dumb. I'm just going to.
I wouldn't want to do without cops.
You wouldn't want to do without cops, but why do you like the cops?
I like that we have law enforcement. We have a system to bring order to chaos when we need to.
And what have they done for you?
Oh, they do a lot of things here. I live in a very safe, secure city.
And what have they done? So they make your
safety, security,
city safe. I think your people make that city safe. But go ahead.
I want my cops. I think it would be worse without the cops. I don't understand people who take their personal trauma with cops and generalize it onto the entire system of law enforcement in the U.S.
Well,
we need cops. We need a stable society with some kind of ability to enforce our laws and rules.
Police are not contributing to stability in American society.
I think they are. I'm quite convinced that they are.
Look.
I'm not ready to run the experiment of getting rid of them and see them become more stable.
It's not a choice between getting rid of them and them being a stable contributing factor.
Well, that's what it would take to convince me that they're not. I'd have to run the experiment and see for myself. So that's what it would take to convince me, to get me to adopt that belief.
All right.
Well, I'd be sure, but just so anyone else listening understands, obviously the choice isn't between no cops at all and the cops we have now. That's not the choice.
No, you know what cops are good for? I'll tell you this, Dennison. Cops are good for mop up. Like after the crime has happened or an accident happened on the road.
Yeah, but those people don't need to be armed and they don't need any authority.
We need cops there to pick up everything and make a report about that. That's what cops are good for.
I think we have good cops. I think 99% of the cops I've ever interacted with have been good cops. So I'm sorry that y'all got the luck of the draw and ran into all these bad cops and that y'all were innocent. If
it came from anybody else, I'd know it was gaslighting. Fab Daddy, those people don't need to be armed, though. They just need to have notebooks and write stuff down. And they don't need badges either. They don't need any special. They don't need any special authority either.
Right. Every cop that I ever met is after the fact. After the fact. And you know what? I've met some tyrants, and you know what I'm talking about, tyrants that just feel like they're above you and shit. You know, those government fucking people. No, that's not subjective.
It totally, whether somebody thinks they're above you or not, it's a subjective call on your part. You don't have direct access to what's in their mind and what they think.
Look,
you're perceiving from their behavior.
Yeah. From behavior.
Tyrants. People can make it pretty clear when they think they own you.
Yeah, it's pretty. Maybe. Hey,
Jeff,
back the blue till it happens to you is what I'm going to say on that fact. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, cops have a purpose. They're there for after a crime has been committed. They're not there to prevent the crime whatsoever. Protect yourself. You're your own safety network. The cops aren't there for you. Do not rely on the cops is what I'm trying to tell you.
Jeff, so do you see that things seriously have to be objective, or are you willing to accept that there's nothing but subjective about it?
I think politically perception is reality, so it doesn't matter what cops actually are. It matters what enough voters think they are. I'm hoping we have enough intelligent voters that could look at the facts and make wise decisions about the level of cops we need in society. But if we get to the point one day where people do buy into the narrative that we no longer need cops, then we'll see what kind of society we end up with.
So you believe voting works? You believe in democracy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I see people get voted out of. I see people get voted into and out of office all the time. I see here in Washington State we have the ballot system, where if there's enough signatures, people can propose a change to the laws. The public votes on it, and then laws get changed. That's how things like the plastic bag ban happens, and the composting laws, etc. I've seen weed get legalized because of voting.
Okay. Are you right?
And I don't have
agree with
a victim mentality doesn't come naturally to me. I don't think I'm capable of experiencing this a powerlessness. It would probably do me good for once in my life to have that feeling. In any situation I'm in where I feel like I don't have power, I'm always able to find ways where I do have some small amount of power and just build on that and keep empowering myself. So I don't have the psychology to even experience the world like a lot of you are describing, because I
Right.
can't stand that sense of being a victim or being powerless.
If you call out government corruption and you see it clearly right in your face, when it's rubbed your face is shoved into the boot is on your neck. Keep in mind, if you talk about any of it, you're just a victim.
Well,
You're
I've been able to talk
powerless.
about it. I've seen other people
You know,
talk
I
about it.
bet.
Dr. Head, I must be fucking stupid because here in Washington
Yeah, you
State,
kind
we
of
got
are.
legal weed um, before the voters. We had the medical weed, and then Seattle decriminalized it, and then in 2012, the voters voted for the recreational system. So there were stages where I watched the different votes gradually give us weed.
So you watch your vote work for you or for the people in your
For
community.
me or sometimes against me when I was in the minority. Like I didn't want
Right.
the plastic bag ban, but the majority of
Right.
the people where I lived did. So I watched them get what they voted for. But it was still the process working.
Okay, so now that I agree with, and I think that's what makes our country the best. I am, I'm an ex-service member. I served our country
Thank you.
from '89 to '93 during Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Um,
It doesn't matter about that. It kind of does because it kind of made me who I am, and I'm
well,
kind of a patriot, and I kind of take the Constitution fucking very seriously. I've been watching 1A Community for too long on YouTube, and I'm sick and tired of tyrants, like I said, that think that they know better than what our rights are.
that is
And
very American.
it's pretty fucking American.
I've been watching the American Revolution, and it's the people like you that started the fire that got the rest of the, like, that's part of what gave us this country.
The army
Well,
stuff is
and you,
totally
you you
different.
mentioned voting, and I want to get onto that fact. A lot of people are saying I don't want to vote because I don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils. Well, voting matters. You don't have to vote for the lesser evil, two evils. Just fucking vote. It's how we change politicians' views. They're gonna tell you whatever the fuck they're gonna tell you. You just hope that you pick the person that's more in line with your views than the other. And I don't look, I'm not, I'll be honest. I'll be purely honest. I do not like Trump. I now I'm a never Trumper. I just don't like the guy. But I'm also a
Do you like
non-Biden
Biden?
guy. I don't like fucking Biden.
Yeah, we're the
He's too
same
Did
old.
boat.
you
He's
vote
too
for
old.
Biden?
He's too old. So, right
Did
now
you vote for Biden though?
I'm debating as a voter. Like I'm listening to RFK and I'm like, holy shit, RFK sounds pretty good and no one's talking about him.
Oh, like writing him in.
Well, no, I think he can make a lot of the ballots and make the next debate. And if he's in
Oh,
the
he might
debate,
end up on the ballot.
yeah, if he makes the debate as an independent, if he gets enough states to put him on the ballot, he'll get there. But no one's giving him anything. His family doesn't like him, whatever. But I listened to him in Stossel, his debate with Stossel during the same time as the other debate. And Jesus Christ, he made a hell of a lot more sense. But no one's talking about him. No one wants to give him grief or credit because you know what? He's not corporate. If you're not part of the corporate, you're screwed. That's what I'm saying.
Did you
Corporate
vote for
America.
Biden?
No, I'm talking about RFK.
Did you vote for Biden?
Last time,
Yeah. Did you?
yes, I did, and I got so
Did
much
you
grief
vote for
from.
Trump?
No, I did not vote for Trump. I'm
So
a
if you
never
don't like
Trumper. I
either,
don't like Trump.
if you
I
don't like either one, why did you vote for Biden anyway?
Well, in 2020, I kind of did like Biden a lot more, but Biden is gone. I mean, he's just too old.
I say.
I'll be honest. He's too old.
I understand.
He's too old.
Trump's
I mean,
not much younger.
is he more capable than Biden? Yes, but he's too old. I mean, he's going to die. I mean, just put someone else in. The Democrats are stupid.
How do you feel about Kamala?
Well, Kamala, she was my attorney general in my state where I live in California, and I hate lawyers. And she was the top lawyer.
And she was a cop.
Yeah, I know. She's a dick. So yeah, I don't like that aspect, but at least she can comprehend and have a conversation and put policy out there. Whether she's a politician. Once she's where she's at, every politician is every politician. They're going to tell you what they want you to hear. It don't fucking matter at that point.
So did you vote for Hillary the first time?
No, I didn't like Hillary. I did not. I did vote for Obama. I did vote for Obama.
So you didn't vote at all at that time, or did you vote for?
No, I really wanted Bernie Sanders more than Hillary. So I wanted Bernie Sanders, and because Bernie Sanders got stolen, I got disenfranchised. I'm not going to lie. I got disenfranchised with, the Democratic and the Republican. They're the same thing, just two different wings of the same bird. I've heard many people say.
Well, not on DEI. They couldn't be more opposite, and on abortion, and on a few other issues.
I kind of look at it like a sine wave. The more radical the left becomes, the more radical the right becomes. They're like canceling each other out. It's a sine wave. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the closer we get to the middle, we might get an actual government that
enlightened centrism
works for us.
Yes, sir.
How many cities did have the right burned down compared to, say, BLM or Antifa?
Can you say that one more time?
How many cities did the right burn down compared to Antifa or BLM?
Okay, now we're going to go ahead and talk about the riots. So we can go all the way back, and we can go way back upon riots in our country. And we can talk about St. Louis.
So is it both sides do it?
We can talk about June 19th, where St. Louis happened, and they destroyed hundreds of city blocks of black people. I mean, really, you want to go on people demonstrating upon their government and look at that as a characteristic of how you want to vote? Is that what you're doing?
I think it was a co-opted psyop that was mostly funded by local police agencies and coordinated by the federal government.
You talking about January 6th or Floyd? Or both?
Did the riots, the so-called burning down of cities, Antifa itself? Antifa and BLM themselves are definitely co-opted, and the FBI has people throughout both of those groups, as they always do. You'll find out about it. Do you think that they're
controlling the groups?
Absolutely.
Like the groups are a puppet of the FBI.
Absolutely. They watch them, they influence them, and as soon as they become powerful,
and you're in the group.
They co-opt them. Because the federal government admits that that's what they always do every time, and they have throughout history.
Oh, so you believe
well before you were born. I can either believe. Well, first of all, most of that stuff is done by journalists. It's not like the government gets caught recording itself doing bad shit. It doesn't come out and say, "Yeah, we did the bad shit." Journalists finds them writing the bad shit that they do down on paper because they do it for a reason.
So you believe that if there's an informant,
that's first of all. I don't. How many distractions are you going to give me before I can finish what I was saying?
Well, I want a part of this conversation too, and I need my question.
To address your distractions until it's just
we're just gonna have to,
and not the thing I wanted to say.
We're gonna have to end it for tonight or pick another topic because I find it hard to continue when I don't get my questions answered, so I can keep up with the conversation.
I have no idea what I was gonna say, so we'll Go ahead.
So if we
Somebody
can't
else.
coordinate, then there's no use to try to have a conversation. But it seems like you think anybody that's an informant in an organization is controlling that organization. That just seems crazy. That just
I was
movies.
explaining it. Yeah.
Okay,
So
go ahead. You were explaining before I even got it out, but now that I got it out, go ahead. You could explain.
so
well,
like
you know,
the
the reason.
Wait,
The
ahead,
reason
let him
why.
explain.
no, go
The
ahead. Fab.
reason. Hey, the reason why we all try to communicate our thoughts is we're kind of trying to persuade the other person's views on the issue, whatever we're talking about. And we hope that they get it and they understand it. But it's, it's like sometimes it's like beating a dead horse. It's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
I'm
When it
trying
comes
to
to what?
understand more than I'm trying to persuade. I don't have a problem giving my point of view because I just have to say it. People don't have to agree with it. I'm just trying to understand why other people think the way they do.
Okay,
And like Denizen was
that's
saying
honest.
about informants, I was trying to say why he thought that meant they controlled an organization just because they were embedded in it.
Because they admit to it.
So every time they're embedded, they automatically control. They say every time we're embedded, they've given away their game plan.
No.
Criminals,
I can
we
say
want
it
to let
again.
you know every time we embed ourselves in an organization, we will be controlling it. They said that.
No, but I can say it again. I'll repeat myself.
Okay, you might have to because obviously
referring to the
because I heard you say they
the
said
FBI gets caught infiltrating every major political group in history.
Right, infiltrating
just
is not
while
control,
it's happening.
though. I'm trying
So,
to
how
understand how
about
you
20
get
years from now, we'll
infiltration
find out about
to
how they were
control every
infiltrated in
time, in
BLM
every
and then
case,
co-opted.
which is what the claim he
If
made.
once something becomes effective, then the government co-opts it and pushes it to wherever they want it to go. They either sabotage it, they discredit the leaders, or they change the actual function and organization of the group itself.
That sounds like a belief.
They did this with Martin Luther King. They did this with the Black Panthers.
And
they
so
did
you
it
think
with
they're
the
doing
Weather
it all the time in
Underground.
all cases.
The government stays in control for a reason. Systems perpetuate themselves. The whole point
people
of the
get
system
voted
is
out
to
of office
perpetuate
all
itself.
the time.
So it's not going to let just some ragtag group of whomever the fucks come along and mess with that shit. So as soon as something becomes actually effective, that's when the government co-ops it.
I don't believe that. People get voted out of office all the time.
And nothing changes.
Things change all the time. Policies. There's a drastic change between Trump's policies and Biden's. I don't know how you think things don't change.
But can
all that changed in my life was prices.
I know the DEI got way worse under Biden. Trump actually had executive orders stopping all of it. So that's a big major change that I noticed right now, just in my own field.
Yeah, I mean, so
we must just be looking at different data points. That's all I can think. We just have different input.
The changes are in the things that the government creates. The DEI is a government-created problem. Which it's pushed by one side, and then when people get sick of that, they vote for the other side, which pretends to suppress it. When really all they do
have a problem with the way our American system
really all they do is they just do it at a slower speed.
It's worked that
way. They
just
do it at a slower speed than the other people did it.
You just have a
and
problem
then
with our
when the pendulum swings the other way, they put the other side of the same party of people in there.
I don't expect.
Not to mention, most of those decisions are being made by lobbyists.
It does.
The corporations don't change. And then you've got people who are even more powerful and have more assets than the corporations that you don't even see on a regular basis, who are making far more important decisions
you're
about
at the mercy of a system you have no
the human society and human organism as a whole. The farther you zoom out, the more obscure the people are who are in power.
No, you can find out who they are. They're not mysterious. You can find out who's in what positions, in what departments, what roles.
Yeah, you know what? The government's too broad for.
Right. That is exactly. It is so broad that people make up a story because they don't have actual data to work off of. So their brain fills in with a story built around whatever cherry pick facts their brain finds significant. It's going to be different for each person. This is all narrative building. And nobody's interested in taking it beyond that, using evidence to get to some level beyond narrative that's more probable.
So what kind of evidence do you need to prove a fact?
Well, I keep asking questions, and those are not even being received in the spirit they're intended either. I keep trying to find out about, like, he says the FBI controls all of these groups, and I'm trying to find out more information about that. And it just seems like a frustrating process. I think people are really attached to their stories, and when they're questioned, they take it as a challenge, and then they defend the story. And what I do on here is the Socratic method of trying to examine all different types of stories, my own, Denizens, yours, everybody that brings a story here. I try to examine, ask questions, examine not only the facts but the statements that people make about the facts, their beliefs, etc. I've been doing this on the stream for years, so if that's not people's cup of tea, I don't know why they come on the stream, because that's what I think they're here to do.
What kind of evidence
What was the
do you
question?
need from the government to make you question the government?
I don't.
Like Denison is.
The government is not a that's part of what I think the problem is people are collapsing a very complex system with thousands of moving parts and individuals with their own psychology and motivations into this single entity called the government. And then they're making statements about it as though it has a single unitary consciousness, and it appears to be opposed to them, and they appear to be powerless and have no influence over any aspect of it whatsoever. And that confuses me because it doesn't correspond to my experience of government in my lifetime.
No, it's just you use the word government in order to refer to a category, a placeholder for power.
But then you make statements about it as though it's an
the
individual
CIA,
autonomous entity. That's where the confusion comes in.
corporations, the ultra rich, the ultranational corporations.
Yeah, I understand your first.
We can see power. It's right in
then
front of us, like he says. It's not in the shadows.
With it,
And you would it'd be silly to believe that there aren't some people who don't want to be seen and don't want you to know who they are.
That's not a
who also have a lot of power.
The fact that it would be
so it's not
silly
a singular
it's not
consciousness.
illogical.
Yes, it is a byproduct of the human condition. No one's saying that these are all red herrings and straw men and diversions built in. It doesn't actually address what we're talking about. We know what we're talking about. The CIA lies to people, takes money, buys drugs, sells the drugs for guns, gives the guns to terrorist organizations, and then goes on the news where literally they pretend to be journalists and lie to your face on the camera.
Do you hear me?
And governments and borders change as a result.
Did you hear me ask questions to try to understand better what Denizens saying? So I don't know why you're saying that I'm filling in with the story when I'm deliberately trying to ask questions to avoid filling in with the story. That's why I ask these questions. I don't want to make assumptions. I don't want my story to be what Denizens trying to say if it's not what he's actually trying to say. That's why I'm so careful to ask questions and try to understand it better. I'm sorry if to you that looks like I'm filling in with the story. In my mind, I'm doing the opposite.
You're all right.
Well, I don't know how much anybody heard of that. I'm not sure when I got put backstage.
You said Denison because you're talking
I don't remember
about
either.
your asshole. I'm just saying, Denison.
You faded out again, Fab Daddy.
You do, Denison. I love you, but Jesus Christ, you talk out of your asshole.
I can't hear you, Fab.
All I heard was Denison, I love you, but Jesus Christ. Yeah, your audio faded out again.
Mine?
Well,
no, Fab Daddy.
My iPhone, and it's fucking 113 degrees here, and it's probably burning.
I wonder if he's just pushing a button or something.
We could kind of hear you. Did you turn the mic volume down, maybe?
My phone's probably overheating because it's hot.
Oh. Well, if we don't get you back, thank you for participating tonight. I enjoyed the conversation for sure.
Are you familiar with the case that happened in Michigan where they, supposedly were kidnapping the governor?
Yes, yeah.
And it turned out it was the feds, informants, etc.
I heard something like that. I don't know all the details. I did hear something like that they had more of an influence.
And then also January 6th, they refused congressional testimony. The head of the FBI, etc., would not say yes or no if there were FBI personnel at January 6th. So that would lead one to assume there was FBI agents.
It would lead me to assume. I would just wait for more evidence.
You never know.
Oh, there were definitely feds in the crowd there.
Yeah, I'm even willing to grant that. That's not beyond the realm of belief. It's just the influence they had. Like people have this remarkability to perceive and calculate the precise amount of influence something has on something else. And I don't know how they're doing it. That's amazing to me.
Doesn't have to
just
be
from watching videos at that.
Another false dichotomy. It doesn't have to be an exact measurement of influence.
Well,
the point is just whether or not they had some influence, because they lie about it and said they had none, that they had nothing to do with it, that it was completely organic. That's a lie. The feds were there. They had some influence. And then they end up always being there every time.
That just seems like an assumption.
They don't talk about it now. And it happens faster and faster, right? So like things that happened in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, we're just finding out about now. But we're also finding about things that happened in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Which actually
things that happened in the 90s and 2000s are just right around the corner. And the stuff that's happening right now is just right around the corner from there.
Breaking down the history of it. Okay, I'm just going to end it tonight. It's not a big deal. This happens sometimes, but we just keep getting into this rut. So I don't know what to do. It's nothing personal. I do enjoy the conversations. We just can't seem to have one right now. So, does anybody want to wrap up with anything?
Peace. First of all, thanks for having me. Peace, love, and yeah.
Okay, that works for me. Thanks, Mossad. All right, Dan. Anything you want to wrap up with?
What happened?
Our conversation keeps breaking down, and I don't think it's gonna.
I thought we were finally getting somewhere.
Oh, I did. I thought the opposite. We just keep talking over each other.
Oh,
but we did pretty good for most.
I thought I was waiting for you to finish. I really did.
I don't know. It could be me. Like either way, I'll own this one. But for whatever reason, we were doing good for most of the night.
You rather end it than talk about something else?
Well, what's on your mind?
Shit. The stock market.
I don't know anything about it. I don't have stocks.
I'm kind of hungry too. I was thinking about Fat Burger.
Are you in California? Where do they have Fat Burger now?
West Coast.
I remember those from Vegas. I think they had them in Vegas. Well, a corporation is that's exactly what it is. It's a corporation. It's a body of people. It's made of individuals. It's the same criticism I have with the woke. They speak of systems as though they are animated and have an intelligence instead of individuals within the systems. And individuals are very complex. One single person can be so complex it's impossible to make a prediction about even that one person. See, when you get a bunch of them together, structured and organized in a certain way, nobody from behind their laptop is going to make any kind of accurate prediction about any given group and all the little dynamics in between the individuals in that group. So maybe it's just the scale that we're focusing on.
Yeah, groupthink is very, very real. Most human beings are not individuals. They don't think for themselves. They're not creative. They go along to get along. Organizations are very single-minded. That's why they're able to get away with such horrible things that individuals would not do on an individual basis. It would be disgusting to them. What was the other thing that you said? Oh, yeah, and again, another false choice. You don't have to be able to predict exactly what a corporation thinks or its intent is or what the outcome will be in order to clearly recognize that it has an agenda. And to see where its agenda intersects, but in this case is antithetical to the agenda of individual consumers, for example. And part of why I believe what I believe is because when I apply my fit model of the world to the existing world, I'm able to make predictions accurately, a lot more accurately than my government and my media So I trust myself more than I trust them.
Well, you should make more of them then. Well, let us know what's going on this week, next week. What can we look forward to? What are the teams saying?
You can continue to expect higher prices and inflation in the stock market.
Oh yeah, I could predict that one too.
Yeah, and this is what I'm focused on, and I have a normalcy bias, so I seriously doubt that Biden will drop out of the race, and I would expect him to be reelected.
Oh, you
barring any changes between now and then. I do that to deliberately go on a limb because I don't like to make political. Anybody who tells you what's going to happen in politics doesn't understand politics. They're very unpredictable.
You just said you could make predictions because your models are so good. But do you think Biden is?
Yeah, but not about specific things like that. Because my model says it doesn't matter who wins the election; the same people rule you. So whatever narrative you Americans decide to tell yourselves on November, I can't possibly predict. My point is that nothing will change on the 8th.
Well, here's the narrative I'm telling myself because I have seen their positions on DEI. They could not be more opposite. I'm predicting there's going to be less DEI under a Donald Trump administration than there will under a Biden because that's what the first 4 years of each one of them showed.
And I will predict that will have no substantive change on corruption, your quality of life, the prices you're paying, the economic burden.
DEI to me is a form of corruption. So if that gets reduced, that will be a change in corruption for me.
The actual practice of DEI won't change. So there'll be less people talking about it.
It'll be removed from the policy. So you won't be forced into trainings, your accreditation, your license won't depend on it, etc.
Yeah, that definitely won't happen.
Well, we'll see. It only started with Biden. So if you're saying no president after him is going to come and reverse it, we'll see. So I'm saying that he will.
No, he's
already put out an order actually doing it that Biden had to revoke.
But what I'm telling you is that won't change anything.
If they take it out of policy, it certainly will change things. They can't.
They can take it out of government policy. They can't take it out of the PepsiCo.
I'm concerned about the government because that's where it affects my field the most, my work the most. I have less control over corporations other than I just don't have to patronize.
Yeah, corporations are DEI and they're pushing it into the government. Trump might resist that, and I would call that superficial while he has his hands in your pocket and he's selling out your
what we see. I have more faith in him.
It doesn't really matter if he takes DEI out of the federal government. That's they eventually sacrifice all their lambs. But I've been experiencing DEI problems my entire life. Since I was a child in school, there was DEI issues well before Biden was a thing, before he was president.
Yeah, but not on the scale that it's embedded in now on the state level. And was shit, I forgot it. Never mind.
It'll make it DEI less so in the government until the next Democrat gets elected 4 years later.
Did the Budweiser Corporation get their way with the DEI?
I don't know. I don't think
they did. I don't think corporations have the last word or the power you think they do. That's why people do things like boycotts and protest, and they're concerned about their brand and their image.
Budweiser does not.
That's one reason they're doing DEI in the first place, because they think that's the trend the public wants them to go, and when they realize it's not, then they have to backpedal and figure out
They create the trends. Marketing agencies create the trends. I'm not sure what incident you're talking about when it comes to Budweiser, but yes, Budweiser is not in control of anything. They don't have any power. I would never.
So all the people on the ground,
the corporations you want to worry about, Budweiser, they were the ones that own all the major news organizations and the ones that run the military-industrial complex.
All right,
those are the corporations that you want to keep your eyes on, right? So Amazon, whatever the fuck corporations Elon Musk has that have government contracts. So forget the fact that he owns Twitter. That's bad enough. But separate from that, he has other corporations that aren't as popular in everyday conversation that he has government contracts with. Those are the people that you have to worry about. Halliburton, BlackRock. These are the corporations that have real power. The pharmaceutical companies, the media companies. So yes, Budweiser doesn't have power over the federal government. I agree.
Okay, well, I'm just not as black-pilled as you are about people or
I'm not black-pilled.
United States or the government.
I'm an optimist.
We'll just leave it at that.
I'm extremely optimistic. I'm not black-pilled at all.
Okay, well, I will let each individual be the judge.
I say that despite all of this corruption and lying and murder on the tax dole, state-sponsored terrorism by the United States, human beings are going to be just fine. As ugly and disgusting as Kellogg Brown root is a boil on the face of humanity, we will still figure it out.
I think those are shallow, superficial, reductive narratives.
So I am the ultimate.
If you did a documentary on all the individuals in the
just because
company,
I tell the truth about the pot that you're stewing.
Good night, everybody. We'll do it again tomorrow. Thanks. Take care.